Hey everyone, Jeff Pleachier here with Allied Insight, bringing you another bite-sized segment to talk about those things that are super important to the staffing industry as it pertains to our given market conditions today. On today's event, we're going to talk about why marketing is becoming the main focus, the main driver for all the conversations that we're seeing in conferences lately. So if anyone remembers, roughly like 3-4 years ago, pre-pandemic, all the conversations that people were having and a lot of the topics that were being discussed at different webinar sessions and panel discussions were around automation and digitization. It was all about sort of like entering into that space with your staffing agency that would drive more of the technological pieces in order to make you more efficient, more productive, streamline process, and create really consistent engagement. In this instance, we have now shifted that focus. And much of that is because I think that there is an assumption made that you've now had roughly 3 years to kind of put these pieces together, albeit we did just live through a pandemic and we're still obviously having the effects of that. But all of the technology pieces should already be in place. With having those technology pieces in place, it affords you the ability to maintain consistency and also to provide a very high level touch to all of the people that are working with your brand and your staffing agency. And so now with this, we start talking about the marketing piece because those tech expectations are already handled, right? So let's talk about tech expectations for just a second. If we look at sort of the Amazon effect, what is the expectation that candidates have when dealing with your brand? Well, they're expecting automated responders. They're expecting thank you messages. They're expecting follow-up in a timely fashion. They want to be educated about the process as they're getting their emails and their feeds back. All of these things are the things that should be able to operate from within your applicant tracking system, your ATS, or from those peripheral solutions that bolt onto your main system. And for those of you who are in a CRM as your main hub, it's the same thing. So whatever your main hub is, or your marketing automation, or if it's an ATS with all of its peripheral applications, that's what's driving all of those technical connections and all of that interaction. At this point in time, there are brands that are near you in size and scope, and there are also brands that are ahead of you and even behind you that are all already trying to operate inside that framework because it's more abundant now today. And with that availability provides obviously a lot of opportunity for agencies of any given size to compete in the same fashion. So now that all of the tech and all of the gear and all the stuff is where it is that you want it, now it's really about focusing in on the brand. And a lot of times when people think about brand and marketing, and they get into this creative space, they tend to think about it as simply the identity. Like, Jeff, we don't need to talk about branding. Like, we know our colors, we have our logo, we have the icon, it's already listed, we know our slogan or our tagline, so we don't need anything additionally. The reality is that that's not necessarily true, right? So the brand is a lot more than just the brand identity. The brand has to do with what it is that you're delivering as a message. What do you stand behind? How do you make sure that you reinforce those positive elements of your brand with your audience? And so with that said, it's really important to make sure that you also define and outline in the same way that you did your brand identity, that you define and outline who you are as a brand and what you stand for. Knowing what it is that you stand for is the thing that starts to bridge that gap and make that human connection between you and your audience. So candidates, being in the candidate-centric market, candidates want to know that you share the same belief systems that they do, that you support the same initiatives that they do. And we won't be everything to everybody. Let's just be really clear. We won't be everything to everybody that interfaces with your brand. But if you don't tell them what you support, then you also are sort of nothing to anybody at the same time. So I know that it's a bit risky and we struggle with wanting to be able to sort of create that line and talk to our audience with regards to like who we are in the space, but you can navigate that effectively and make a situation where you're not necessarily putting yourself into a precarious situation and you're still able to leverage that information going forward. So again, when you're thinking about your brand and who you are, you're more than just a logo, you're more than just the brand identity. You really want to focus in on those things that make you stand out as a brand and what you support. Those can be things from obviously, equity and humanitarian efforts, but it can also be things that might be a little bit more close and near and dear to your heart, like sustainability and ecologically friendly and all of those types of things. So as you're thinking about moving your brand forward, really put an emphasis the same way that you did on the color and the stylization and the fonts and the iconography and all that stuff, the vector images. Put that same emphasis on who you are as a brand, to make sure that you're expressing it and showing not only what your brand looks like, but also what you stand for. So now as we come into this last segment here, right, we're going to talk about like making your brand your competitive advantage. So a lot of times brands are, like I said, they've sort of stopped their pursuit at their image. They've stopped their pursuit at that brand identity. And I would urge you to sort of pick at that a little bit more and really explore the opportunities to make it your competitive advantage. So as I mentioned before, it could be something obviously that is more laced around a lot of the conversations that have been coming up over the last few years and arguably, prior to that. But there's definitely been a greater emphasis on like equality and humanitarianism, both domestically and globally. At the same time, you may also want to, create a certain value proposition around the fact that like you're ecologically friendly, or that if we're more client centric or more candidate centric, it would be things that really are around either performance. So, the things that you do, that you deliver, that make you incredibly different in the marketplace, as we all claim to be very different in the marketplace. What are those things and what are those value adds that your clients, that your employers are going to be interested in? Conversely, as we look at what the candidates are doing, we also want to make sure that candidates understand why it's important to be working with you. We want to make sure that the candidates understand what those value adds are that you bring to the table in order to prop them up and show them why they should be choosing you versus another staffing agency. As you continue to kind of like march down this path, and I know that a lot of us are still recovering from much of the turmoil that took place over the last few years, and trying to make sure that like your brand is coordinated, that your process has been updated, that your technology is in place, and all these things. You have so many different areas to sort of keep propped up, and it's getting more complicated. The good news is this, that a lot of the people that are your peers or your competition in the marketplace, they're all struggling to be able to find some brand elements that they can use to leverage as their competitive advantage for 2022 and beyond. So you're not alone. The main thing though is that you're going to want to make sure that you're measuring your process and you're putting it into a scope that allows you to do a little bit of all the things simultaneously. So as you amend your process in order to accommodate the change in the market, as you add that technology piece in order to add efficiencies to your space and make things better, you also still want to look at your brand and try to identify what are the things that you can do in order to establish that footprint so that people understand you as being greater than just another staffing agency, but also understanding what those value adds are that you bring to the table that they should also put some value on as well. These are the things that we work with as we work with our clients, and even as we do different panel discussions and webinars for different agencies or conferences. And so if you have questions about like how you can use your brand or how you can even use your proprietary process in order to extend your brand further and create some competitive advantages in the marketplace, you could certainly feel free to reach out to us. Go to our website, alliedinsight.com. You can connect with us on any of the pages, and we'll be more than happy to jump on a call and discuss what the nuances are to your staffing agency and how you could maybe utilize those elements in order to make yourself stand out and really be more competitive in the marketplace. I hope this has been helpful. I know that it's sort of like a new topic, that it's kind of like, really starting to transition, as I said, away from all the ancillary components that you add into your ecosystem, into your tech stack, and starting to really drive on the who piece of who you are and the value that you bring to the table. And so I hope that, you understand a little bit better today how brand can really be a strong player in what your strategic implementation is in order to achieve those corporate initiatives throughout the year. Again, if you need anything, we're here to help. Certainly feel free to reach out to us, and look forward to seeing everybody on next week's segment, where we will be talking about more things, business development related to the staffing industry with another bite-sized bite. So have a great week, everybody, and we'll see everyone next week.